Cheeseheads, get on your feet. It's Curd and Long. Hosted by Sparky, Fifer, and Ryan Horvath.
Welcome into another edition of Curd and Long. Steve Sparky Fifer with you, 1250 AM The Fan. You can check out all the recent interviews and stuff I have up at 1250amthefan.com. Follow me on Twitter at Sparky Radio as we broadcast this thing live on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page right now. Special guest co-host today, Ryan Horvath, not able to make it. He's doing weekday activity on the BetQL Radio Network today. So Book of Eli _NFL on Twitter. Eli Berkovits, friend of the podcast, of course. PackADay podcast, Packer Report, all that fun stuff. Eli, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate being on. Obviously, a very exciting week for Packer fans, so I'm looking forward to talking about it. Thank you for having me. All
right, so let's get to a couple of different things here. I don't know if you watch it or not, but this whole quarterback school thing that JT O'Sullivan does, now, he's making you pay for the Patreon thing or whatever it is. I've never even heard of Patreon. I've never done anything with Patreon. It's like, what the hell is Patreon? Fine. So I go, like $5, fine. I'll do your $5, fine. So I watch it. And what I realized is, because I've been just watching the YouTube version, he picks like 4 or 5 passing plays in the free YouTube version on Twitter, and that's all you would get. Well, now with this Patreon thing, now it's every single offensive play, and he goes over the running plays, passing plays, does everything. So that is cool. Yeah. But what you realize when you watch this is, and I'm glad I did not watch this earlier in the year, of just how many mistakes are still being made on this offensive line when it comes to running the football. I mean, one play, running just completely whiffed and missed his guy, and Jones got killed in the backfield. Another play, Walker's at left tackle. It's a run play. He drops into a pass pro set, and JT is just laughing like, okay, well, that dude clearly did not know what the play was. I mean, there are still things where, guys are running a double, guy comes free because somebody missed who they were supposed to pick up. So as well as this run game has looked for the last 3 weeks, it can still be better, Eli. And in my mind, that's actually good news that they're really still, that offensive line still is not playing necessarily at a peak level. A lot of this is Aaron Jones, but they can still get better.
Yeah, I think that's probably just a product of, young offensive line, first-year starter quarterback. We see the communication. While obviously I think it's overall been pretty good, there's definitely places where it could be better. I think even looking at, on Sunday, the Jordan Love fumble, that was supposed to be a pass, probably a screen pass to the left side. All the receivers thought it was a run. They start blocking. Love has to scramble, results in a fumble. So, yeah, to think that as well as they've been playing and as well as Aaron Jones has been running the ball the last 3 weeks, that they could still be getting better, it's kind of exciting to think what the potential could be.
No doubt. Tom Silverstein had a piece today in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel and the Green Bay Press-Gazette talking about the receivers, the rookie receivers on this year's roster, essentially, or the younger guys, not named Dobbs or Watson or Toure, and kind of what the Packers saw in each one of these guys as far as why they drafted them or why they picked him up. The Bo Melton one, I kind of chuckled at because, they pick him up off of the practice squad in Seattle last December, so over a year ago. And they were thinking, well, good special teams player, probably. Maybe we convert him to corner. And then he gets on scout team this year, working with Clifford of all people. And they start making a bunch of plays together on scout team against Joe Barry's defense. It doesn't. Either way. So that really impressed the coaching staff. So they said, all right, well, let's see what you can do with Jordan Love on an actual game day. And that's kind of how it all came about, was him and Clifford making plays on scout team. I think it's a great example for just anybody, running a scout team. They're like, man, I'm on the practice squad, man, I ain't never going to get called up. But those type of things do stick out to coaches, and that gives Bo Melton an opportunity. And it's good to hear that Clifford's playing pretty well on the scout team.
Yeah, I mean, to see what they've done, like you said, with these young receivers, and we're not even, it's funny that Watson and Dobbs we're looking at as not young receivers who are just in their second year, but to see obviously what Reed's done, what Wicks has done, and they've been incredible. But then you have Bo Melton, like you just mentioned, who no one really expected. I don't think many people thought they would see him play a snap in the regular season. And for him to come out and not just play, but really make an impact. And I don't think it's even just like, screen passes or wide open. Like, he's making some really impressive catches, and he's breaking some tackles after. So it's just exciting to think that this receiver group at number 5 and 6, you have Malik Heath and Bo Melton, who have both shown flashes that, could put them in a lot of other teams. Maybe they're 3 or 4.
Right. So you look at the wide receiving core. So Watson's back, obviously. Dobbs is back. Reed is back. Wicks is back. So those 4 for sure. And then you get into DeBose, who hasn't played really at all. He just got, activated or whatever this last week, Grant DeBose. So you have him possibly in that receiver room next year. You have Malik Heath still possibly. You have Bo Melton still possibly. And then you see a mock draft, and then you see the Packers getting mocked to a wide receiver like a Keon Coleman or somebody from Florida State, who I love. But I would be absolutely floored if they took a wide receiver early in this draft. I would be absolutely stunned if that's the route they went. Because if I'm good, because I'm looking at this going, I'm good. Even with Watson hurt and out, we had enough guys to make plays like Wicks where it didn't kill us. Last year when he was out, it was over. They couldn't do anything on offense because they didn't have anybody else to kind of take his spot. Now they kind of do, it looks like. Your thoughts on that wide receiver room kind of going into next year?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, like you said, we're going to see mock drafts, Packers wide receiver in the first round, because people just love to do that, even though year after year after year, they don't take one. I think last year was finally the year where I was just like, I'm done. I'm not even going to think about it. And yet, towards the end, I still started mocking Jackson Smith and Jigba because you feel like you have to, you want to, the story, but it would be, like you said, I think it would be pretty shocking if they did that this year in the first round for sure, but even in the second or third, like there are people saying they still need a true one and all that. I think Watson, when healthy, is a true one. Now, obviously, when healthy is the key part of that equation, but I don't think they need to be thinking right now that we got to add another top guy. You want to maybe add some depth if you don't think you're going to bring back Heath and Melton or either of them, even though I think they probably will. But I think this should be the offseason of the least amount of wide receiver the Packers talk that we've seen in a long time.
And Packer fans should be completely fine with it. Talking with Eli Berkovits, follow him on Twitter, @bookofeli_NFL. I want to talk about this last Packer game a little bit before we jump into the Cowboys coming up this weekend, and we will jump into the Cowboys, but just kind of put a bow on the Bears here as we record on Wednesday afternoon. Okay, so in that game, the play that I'm still amazed by, and then when I saw the video from JT last night, he lost his mind. The play where Reed is coming down the left sideline, cuts across, wide open. He hits him. He goes 50-some yards, right? LaFleur talking about how he wasn't even in the progression. That was a him and Jordan thing, that he thought he might have ran out of bounds. That's why they ran to the line of scrimmage and did what they did. But that is a hell of a throw. I mean, when you watch the All-22 and you kind of see where he is, the angle that he's throwing it from, where Reed is when he lets the ball go, that is, as JT put it, that's a special throw. Like, there's not a lot of guys that could probably make that throw in the situation he made it. And it's that type of stuff where you go, yeah, I'm not going to call him a Hall of Famer. I'm not going to do anything like that. But as a fan, you're like, man, chemistry-wise, you can see they're starting to figure it out and how to play together. They're starting to see the same type of things and being able to help him out in different situations. Getting there, couldn't do that. It just gets you excited about what he is going to possibly look like next year, because maybe unfair, but I expect this offense to be a top 3 offense next year. I really do.
Yeah, I don't think it's unfair at all. I mean, I think looking at what they've done just the last 8 weeks or so, 7-8 weeks, you put that over a whole season. I mean, I think that puts Jordan Love in MVP conversations. I think that puts, a number of these wide receivers in Pro Bowl conversations. The fact that no one made the Pro Bowl this year is kind of surprising to me in certain ways. But yeah, that throw to Reed, I mean, moving to his left, down the sideline, puts it right in stride. And we saw it all night. I mean, he's been playing this well for a while, but I feel like Sunday was probably Jordan Love's best game. I mean, to throw, to complete 27 of 32. Yeah, 27 of 32 is just, that's crazy. I mean, most guys aren't completing 27 passes in a game, let alone only throwing 5 incompletions. Like, maybe if you're throwing the ball 50 times, maybe you'll complete 27 passes. But the way we're seeing Jordan Love play right now, like you said, even though Packers Twitter, myself included, we love to throw around 3 straight Hall of Famers because it's fun. But in reality, like the way this season has gone, I think there's no doubt that Jordan Love, number one, gets paid massively this offseason and proves himself to be a franchise quarterback for years to come for the Packers.
What about Matt LaFleur? What was your take on LaFleur going into the season, being his first year without Aaron Rodgers, and knowing that last year they missed the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers? And what is your opinion now of Matt LaFleur? I feel like a lot of people bailed on LaFleur during the season and wanted him gone and Goody gone and everybody gone when Love and this receiving core were going through that rough stretch where they couldn't move the football. And now I feel like everybody's all back on board again with the aforementioned people.
Yeah, I've been pretty critical of Matt LaFleur throughout most of his tenure, not just this year. There are certain things that I'm not a big fan of, but he has really shut me up and a lot of other people these last 2 months or so. Like you said, that 4 or 5 week stretch where they literally, like you said, they couldn't move the ball. They couldn't score a point in the first half. I think they had 6 first half points over the span of like a month. And it wasn't just that the players weren't executing. It seemed like the game plans were just way, way off. It was like they had no idea who they were playing or who they had on their team. And then the last 2 months, it's like him and Love are just so in lockstep right now, where every play call comes in, Love knows exactly what he's doing, where he's going with the ball. The guys are getting open. And he's attacking defenses in the way that you want to see it. Teams with, weaker run defenses, we're finally seeing Aaron Jones get used more. But at the same time, I do like the fact that he's been staying aggressive and not just being like, oh, we have a small lead, let's just run it and try to run out the clock. Like we even saw in that last drive, I think it was a first down, maybe a second and long, and they did a play action little pass to Aaron Jones. I think it was a 1st and 10. And, on the first play of a drive with 6 minutes left and you're thinking, let's run out the clock, to pass the ball, even if it's a short pass, but it shows that you're not just going to do exactly what the defense expects you to do. Run it on first, run it on second, and then you have 3rd and 7 or 8, and you hope to make a pass. Like he's trusting Love, and Love is showing him that he deserves that trust. And right now they're really working together so well.
I said back in October when they were going through that funk that he doesn't trust them. Like he doesn't trust the receivers to run the right routes. He doesn't trust the quarterback to not force something or whatever the case may be. And he was calling it as vanilla as possible, trying to see what his team was going to be capable of in a first half, and then deciding what he thought. Then he opened it up to whatever level he felt comfortable with in the second half of games. And as he said, and it wasn't until the Steeler game, and I remember coming on this podcast after the Steeler game and telling Ryan Horvath of BetMGM tonight, dude, I know they lost, but man, I'm telling you, it's finally starting to click. You can see it. And now all these weeks later, he brings up that Pittsburgh game too. But the other thing, kind of when we talk about this Packers offense and Matt LaFleur and trust and all that stuff is, do you trust Matt LaFleur to do the right thing and let Joe Barry go still as defensive coordinator? Because, hey, that Minnesota game, backup quarterbacks, I get it. Fine, put that aside. But they held Jefferson pretty much in check, even with those 2 quarterbacks. Now you come back against the Bears, whose offense was clicking pretty good, right? They'd won 5 of 7, right? They were going okay. I was worried that Fields was going to run for like 100 yards on them and maybe throw for 150 and do whatever. But going back to that Carolina game, that's when they started playing man a little bit. They started blitzing a little bit. You saw it in the Minnesota game. It worked. You're blitzing safeties. You're blitzing linebackers. Quay Walker finally is being used to go after a quarterback. Finally. So he made some changes. If that's LaFleur's influence, his influence, whatever. But now it's the Cowboys. Eli, they beat the Cowboys. We were averaging, 37 at home this year? They beat the Cowboys and Cowboys score 17 or something? I don't know, man. I don't know how you look at Joe Barry and go, yeah, dog, I mean, you sucked for most of the year, but sorry, we got to let you go because fans are pissed. I just don't know how they fire Joe Barry if they hold the Cowboys in check in Dallas and win that football game. I think he saves his job if they win this game.
It's scary to think that what you're saying is not like crazy. Like I really could. I mean, knowing this team, if they somehow go, because yes, you can look at the numbers and the stats, and they're not terrible. I mean, they're not good, but they're not like world-endingly bad. But we know how that really is. I think those numbers are kind of deceiving. And if they do go and somehow beat the Cowboys and keep them, to, like you said, 17 to 24 kind of points, it will be tough. But at the same time, I just don't know. I for a while thought they're going to keep him. They're going to keep him. Like there was that 8-week stretch where no one scored more than 20 points, 24 points, or whatever. But I do feel like LaFleur, who is always so it's on me, and like always, he never wants to criticize anyone. I do feel like in press conferences, he has been more willing to kind of be like, didn't really love the defense or didn't love that play call. Like he's been more willing to criticize it. And I just don't know how you can look at this defense as a whole, this whole season, and say Joe Barry deserves to keep that job. I mean, really the 3-week stretch that was the nail in the coffin was the Giants, Panthers, Bucks.
But Eli, look at last year. He saved his job of those last 3 games of the year, whatever it was, going into the offseason. Dad saved his job. And I told Horvath, I go, they ain't firing him. This stretch right here, it's going to keep his job. Watch. And they brought him back. All LaFleur needs is a little something, a little nugget to tell Murphy and Goody, hey, look, he figured it out. Like, we're good. Like, we're going to do this next year. We're good. And then what are they going to say? I mean, I don't know if you're Brian Gutekunst, if you look at LaFleur, if you beat the Cowboys and you get to the next round, and then if you face the Niners, it's probably over. But if you get to that next round and you stop the Dallas to, 17 points less than what they averagely, usually score at home, I think LaFleur wins that conversation with Goody and Murphy at the end of the day to keep Joe Barry if they beat the Cowboys and they hold him in check.
Yeah, I really hope that is incorrect. Like I don't hope for people to lose their jobs, the stat, but I think it's beyond clear that this defense is being held back by Joe Barry. Sure, the last couple of weeks, I do like the blitzing more in the stat, but let's be real. It's been Justin Fields, Jaron Hall, and Nick Mullins.
Now it'll be Dak.
Exactly. Now it will be Dak. And I will say that, so how about this? I mean, if they lose this game, even if the defense plays somewhat decent, do you think that ends Barry's time almost automatically? Or do you think if he has if the defense plays pretty well, but the offense doesn't step up, he could maybe stick around?
So if the Packers lose 31-24, he's out. He's gone.
Yeah.
If the Packers lose 17-13, 20 points less than what the Cowboys average at home, and that's the best defensive performance against them all year in Dallas. I don't know. LaFleur might be able to argue he didn't lose that. Our offense didn't score enough. Like we knew we were going to have to score more than 13 points. I really think if he holds the Dallas to say 17 or less, where you can argue it's 20 points better than anybody else has done against them all year, I think you can argue that maybe they keep him. And look, if we're going to be realistic here, who do we think is going to get that job if it's not him? To me, it's going to be Staley. Like, he's going to give the job to Staley, and he's going to come in here and run the same crap that Joe Barry's been running. Now, maybe he runs it more effectively. Maybe the calls are different at different times or whatever. But I think Staley seems to be the obvious choice for LaFleur to bring in here if he gets rid of Joe Barry, and it's going to be the same type of thing.
I would hate that. Honestly, I really would. I feel like maybe it's just bias because the Chargers are a historically unfortunate team in sports. Everything they do just seems to blow up in their face. But I don't want Brandon Staley to be a part of my football team in any way. Like I can't trust him after seeing the way he coached that team.
Agreed.
So if it's between Barry or Staley, and let's just say they win this game and they have a good performance, I would probably lean Barry, which is crazy, which is absolutely crazy. But that is not praise for Barry.
The headline of the social media post is going to be Eli finally comes around on keeping Joe Barry. That's what it's going to be. That's going to be the headline.
No, that is much more of an indictment on Brandon Staley. But I think just with all the first round talents and all this young talent on defense, there's no excuse for this team to not just be a middle of the pack defense, which is, I mean, I wouldn't even say they're that. I mean, I think they're worse than that, but they should be a top 8 to 10 bona fide stud kind of defense with this amount of talent. And year after year after year, we just don't see it happen. So obviously I want them to win this Sunday, but if that means Joe Barry keeps his job, I don't know.
So think about something. So CeeDee Lamb, right? Packers have done fairly okay against number one wide receivers. Yeah. I mean, Joe Barry's done a nice job of taking out number one wide receivers and making somebody else kind of have to beat them at the end of the day. So if they can minimize CeeDee Lamb to under 100 yards, that's 90 yards, if that's 75, whatever. If they can minimize that and then essentially make somebody else be that guy to beat them with Dak Prescott, okay, I'm fine with that. I mean, we can talk about Ferguson, the former Badger. He not that fast. Like Quay Walker should be able to run with him. That doesn't concern me all that much. So I'm okay with that. They haven't run the ball great with Pollard and company necessarily. So I don't really worry about that all that much. I just think if you are able to take out CD Lamb with 2 guys, 3 guys, whatever many guys you want to put on him, and dare him to throw the ball somewhere else and beat you, even if it's Cooks, like, okay, maybe he'll hit Cooks once and he'll get a play. But I don't know if I think Dak Prescott can consistently look to everywhere but CD Lamb without throwing a pick or 2 and possibly turning the ball over.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I was saying it last night on the Pack. We were joined by Eric Hubbs from Barstool, but Jair Alexander, I mean, this might be the biggest game of Jair's career. I mean, assuming he travels with CD Lamb all over.
He should.
As he should, exactly. It is going to be up to him to really help, kind of save this defense. Because if Lamb goes off, you're going to lose. It's that simple. If he goes and drops 120 yards and has a touchdown or 2, you're going to lose the game. If you could limit him and, like you said, force Cooks or Ferguson to beat you, or try to get Tony Pollard, who it's been really ineffective this year, in my opinion, to try to beat you, they could have a chance. So that's why, again, Jair or CeeDee Lamb probably going to be the matchup of the game.
The other part of this, when you talk about this game, can they get pressure like they did against the Bears, rushing 4? Because I think that's kind of what you want to do here. You want to be able to get pressure up the middle to be able to get Prescott a little bit uncomfortable without having to blitz every down in order to make him uncomfortable, right? So can Brooks get pressure? Can Kenny Clark get a sack or something in those lines? Can Slayton push the center back into Prescott to create some type of turnover or something? And Rashawn Gary has been, I mean, I understand he gets doubled and all that other stuff, but he hasn't had a 2 or 3 sack day here in a little bit. I mean, if he can have a big day, Van Ness has had a sack here and there, and they've got guys that can get home. The question is, can they get home consistently like they did against Chicago, against Dallas?
It will be tough. I mean, Dallas, they have a great offensive line. We know that. I think they're like bottom 5 or bottom 7 in the league in giving up sacks. So that will be tough, especially to do it without blitzing. But I totally agree that doing your best to keep 7 back and only rush 4 would be your best case. That way you could double CeeDee Lamb, have someone over the top, stuff like that. But at the same time, I think it's a good strategy to go into the game. But if you're not getting pressure, you need to be able to adjust and stop bringing it if you have to. Because we can't have, if we have Dak sitting there for 4 or 5 seconds, sorry about that, my cat is making a little bit of noise, then you're going to run into some problems. If Dak Prescott can sit back there and scan the defense and you're bringing 3 or 4 guys, and we've seen specifically on like 3rd and longs where we see the 3-man rush, and I just lose my mind. Because for me, it's like you need 15 plus yards on 3rd down, you bring a blitz, and no matter what, he has to get the ball out fast. So either he's throwing it short of the 1st down and you rally and you make a tackle, or
that's all right. Don't worry about it. It's all good. Keep going.
Or he's got to throw it deep with pressure in his face and hope to complete a low percentage kind of pass. So I get the idea of dropping 8 on 3rd and long. I get the concept of it, but I totally hate it. I just think that you're better off bringing pressure and trusting your guys to cover for 1.5 seconds as opposed to dropping 8 and then giving the quarterback 3 to 5 seconds on 3rd and long to let his longer developing routes develop downfield.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. The other part of this too is going to be the safety play in this football game. They really need to make a play somewhere in this game, whether it's a big hit that causes a fumble, whether it's an interception, something, because they haven't gotten necessarily a ton out of the safety play. And being without Ford for all this time, you were without Savage for quite a while. You've had having to play Owens, he's okay. I mean, I don't think he kills you necessarily. He's okay. But that's probably where they're going to go in the draft. Obviously, maybe they draft three safeties or a corner that converts to safety. They're going to go that way, I would think, for sure in the draft. But for this game specifically, their safeties have to at least do their jobs and not make mistakes or have a communication breakdown and give up a big play.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the safety, I will say, I feel like it has been like going into the season, it was extreme concern for what safety could look like. And I think it's definitely been better than that. Ford, when healthy, has had a decent season. Savage has had a bit of a bounce back year again when healthy. And Owens, like you said, provides something, that's not a total liability in the secondary. So at some point, a turnover needs to be made. Like against a team like this, you have to do it. You have to either pick them off, force a fumble. And that's where, yeah, like you said, these safeties are going to come into play a ton. But I think regardless of how this game goes or the rest of the playoffs go, safety, corner, the whole secondary as a whole kind of needs to be if not the top priority, one of the top priorities. But I think probably the top priority. I mean, outside of Jair and maybe Carrington Valentine, who's shown some flashes, I don't know who in the secondary you can feel good about for future years.
Agreed. The other part about this, too, is talking about this Cowboys game with Eli Berkovits, PackADay podcast, Packer Report. Follow him on Twitter at _BookOfEli_NFL. I think it's a big damn deal for this team to get out to an early lead. 10-0, 14-0, 17-3, something like that. Like, get to the point where on the sidelines, they're going, oh, hell no. No. This is not happening again. We're going to get killed if we lose to this team. Like, no. And let them go in the locker room questioning themselves and bickering back and forth about what's going on. That's what you want. What you cannot have happen, because it's going to be over. If they do that to you, it's curtains. Because then they're just, Micah Parsons is coming. Everybody's coming. And then it's going to be hell on earth for this Packers offense trying to figure out what to do. Because what you need to do is you still need to be able to be in a position to where you still give Aaron Jones a bunch of carries and go. But if you get to the point you're tracing 14 or 17 and LaFleur goes, well, can't do that anymore. It's going to be hurry up and throw and forget the run game. You're going to put your offensive line in a horrible position to try and protect Jordan Love. So it can't go that way. For the Packers, either get out to the big lead. I think that's the best way to win the football game and make them have to chase, or keep it as close as possible to the fourth and hope that your defense can get a stop when you need it late in the game.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, Dallas right now, I do feel like, all the pressure's on them. They're the 2 seed. They're the home team. They've been one of the best teams in the NFL this year. They go down, it's the end of the first quarter and it's 10-0. We're going into half and it's 14-6, 14-3. They're going to start sweating. They're going to start really feeling that pressure. And for the Packers, it's just going to validate the way they feel like they've been playing. And it's going to give them all the confidence they need, as opposed to the other way, where you go down and you let this Dallas defense unleash its pass rush and everything they do with Dan Quinn, and it's a really impressive defense. It will be a long day. So like you said, if the Packers win the toss, kind of like we saw in Detroit, take the ball, go down, try to score. Do not give Dallas a chance to get the ball, take a lead, and start to really feel like, okay, we got this. We're the better team. We should win this game. You got to make them uncomfortable. And I think Matt LaFleur at this point has shown that he trusts Jordan Love enough that I do expect them to really, sling it around. I do think they should still run the ball a ton because Aaron Jones is incredible. Yep. But I think they're going to give Love the chance to really win this game with some, deep shots and all those kind of things.
I got 2 more questions, and then that'll do it for Curd and Long. Download on your Odyssey app, or if you download your favorite podcast app, check us out on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page as well. I want to get your prediction. That'll be the last question. Before I get your prediction, I have I think, a difficult question. At least for me, it's a difficult question. Who is the better coach, McCarthy or LaFleur?
It's a good question. Damn. I would honestly, I would probably have to lean towards Mike McCarthy just a tiny bit, at least right now. Like, again, I do feel like Matt LaFleur, the last 2 months have been great, but I've had a lot of questions about the way he's coached, especially in big games, playoff games, especially big time decisions. I feel like he sometimes gets tripped up or choked up and just like a little nervous for himself. And McCarthy, at the end of the day, led a team to a Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl. That matters. Obviously, his years in Green Bay, there were some years where it felt like, what is this guy doing right now? And then there were some years where him and Rodgers were just perfect together. So it's not that I don't think LaFleur can get there, but I think I would need to see next year and a full season, Love, this receiving group already more developed, and see how he goes about it. Because, like, for me, like, one of the bigger indictments I'll always have on LaFleur, and I understand Aaron Jones and his inability to stay healthy, but even when he is healthy, until basically these last 3 weeks, I just feel like he's so underutilized consistently, week after week, year after year. And for me, it's like, Aaron Jones is clearly the best player on this team. I thought even when Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams were there, Aaron Jones was the underlying engine that moved that offense for so long. Like, he's just, when he's going, the Packers, they win. It's that simple. Like, they don't lose if Aaron Jones is playing full snaps, getting 15-plus touches, having a good game. They do not lose. So the fact that he consistently was A.J. Dillon, it's like, it's just simple looking at your team and talent evaluation that I think LaFleur sometimes, I think he gets too cute, maybe he gets in his own head. But I hope next year we see that kind of change and him lean on his best players. And I do think, LaFleur is young. He's still early in his coaching career. He can definitely surpass McCarthy, but it's very close. But I would have McCarthy at least as of now.
I would take LaFleur, and I don't have to think about it very long. And the reason I take LaFleur is because of what you saw this year, now that he got 12 the hell out of the way and can call his own offense. You can see how he can help a quarterback, how he helps wide receivers get them open by great play design and doing different stuff. McCarthy is stuck in his way, which is my premier player is going to beat your premier player one-on-one and win that route, and then my quarterback's going to get him the ball. And he's got that in CeeDee Lamb. He had that in Devontae. He had that to a degree in Jordy Nelson and so forth. I don't think if Mike McCarthy had this team, they would be anywhere close to this. And I don't think this offense would have come out of it this way. I think it would have been a disaster. So for me, at least, the two both specialize in offense. So that's why I look at this and say, okay, I think personally, LaFleur is a better designer of plays and a better play caller over McCarthy. Secondly, McCarthy, great leader of men. That's what we always talked about. Okay. But LaFleur, to be able to hold that locker room together through that 4 or 5 game stretch and not have them splinter and fall apart and give up on the season and be like, this offense sucks. Like, it's never going to get fixed. Like, it's right. And I'll never, Jair out there, that one game said, hey man, like, they can't score. So we have to score. If we're going to win, we're going to have to score. Until they figure out what they're doing, we're going to have to do it ourselves. And I was like, oh man, they're like, they know the offense stinks. And now they feel the pressure to kind of do something, but they still rallied all together. And then, Rashawn Gary gets emotional like all the time this year about everything. And LaFleur runs out and hugs Jordan Love, and Love talking about he'll never forget that moment. You could just feel the bond that he's got. And to be able to pull this team through what was supposed to be a rebuilding year and be in the playoffs, and all the trust that they've all put into this guy going forward. And he never, ever gave up on him. He never really went against them. He was pissed. What game was it where he was pissed off at halftime? It looked like he was going to start crying when he was talking to the sideline reporter. He was so pissed off because they weren't playing hard. But outside of that, which one was it?
I don't know. Maybe was it the Lions possibly, the first Lions game?
Raiders or Lions? I don't know.
Maybe Raiders. I feel it was a primetime game for sure. So.
Right. And that was where he was hot. Outside of that, for the most part, he kind of kept it under control and really didn't lose his crap while they were going through this. So for me, for all those reasons, I think I would take LaFleur. If you're telling me you get one coach to coach your team, same personnel, I think I'm taking LaFleur.
No, I one thing for sure. I mean, when it comes to play design, I'll give it. And scheming your guys open, for sure, I'm taking LaFleur over McCarthy. But for me, I mentioned the Jones thing, but another part is I just feel like there have been times, especially again in big games and playoff games specifically, whether it's the decision to kick the field goal against the Bucs instead of going forward there, or versus the Niners when you started Dennis Kelly over Yash at right tackle. And like there are just certain things where, even during a game where you're seeing something going wrong, and even though he has been great at overall adjustments, but sometimes it's just one thing where it's like you got to get a player out. And I feel like sometimes he's a bit hesitant to really do that. And again, like I totally agree. Play design, I'm with you on that. But I do think McCarthy was just a little more willing to, I guess like you said, it's his way. And even if maybe he defends someone, he's going to do it. And sometimes you need to be a bit of a jerk sometimes as a coach. And I think LaFleur is just a little too nice sometimes.
Yes, he's very loyal. And the other thing is we talk about LaFleur's postseason. Hey, wait, ain't like McCarthy won a bunch in the postseason now. McCarthy in Dallas has got one playoff win, I think. So they ain't doing it there. And in Green Bay, yes, he got to conference championship games. And then everybody got all pissed off about him in conference championship games and how that whole thing went. Oh, he went conservative against Seattle, da-da-da. So he's also been under fire for the same thing, but he's got a Super Bowl, right? He's got a Super Bowl. But if Matt LaFleur wins a Super Bowl with Jordan Love and these young receivers, I'm telling you right now, fans are going to view him in a higher level than they view McCarthy winning it with Rodgers, I think.
Yeah, I guess, do you mean this year or in general?
In the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I would say for sure. In the next couple of years, if he does it, then I would be with you for sure. Because then you can look at accolades, have them in the same spot. And then when it comes to, like you said, play design, getting guys open, I do like LaFleur more in that area. For me, I guess it's really, I want to see him not just win a playoff game, but win not even a Super Bowl, but in a big moment, just coaching your team the right way and getting over the hump of whether it's even this week versus the Cowboys or if it's another year playing the Niners or the Cowboys or the Eagles or something where it's a late game situation and a close game and they come out on top, because we haven't really seen that, at least again in the playoffs with LaFleur. So that's just for me. It's just I feel like in the biggest moments he seems to sometimes crumble.
Shrink. Yep, I get it. All right, prediction for the Packers and the Cowboys on Sunday, Eli Berkovits.
I got to take the Packers, not just because we're here talking about the Packers, but I don't think it's at all out of the realm of possibility for them to go in and upset the Cowboys. Number one, they're the Cowboys. It's the playoffs. It's what they do. They choke, and whether it's this week or another week, it's going to happen. I think the Cowboys will eventually do that. And right now, we always talk about teams getting hot before the playoffs, and this team is maybe the hottest team in football right now. So I'm going to go Packers 27, Cowboys 24. And it's going to be a close game. I think whoever has the ball last could easily end up winning this game. And it just scares me to think, what if this game comes down to Anders Carlson and his leg? That would be
turning the TV off.
Yeah, that would be very scary.
Nope, turning it off.
Because I just don't think you can put yourself in that situation. I think you've got to make sure that you do not need that to happen, because if that's what's needed to happen, it could be a heartbreaking end of the season.
Yeah, they could be down 24-23, go hit a 45-yard field goal to win it. I'm turning the TV off. I'm not watching it. I'm turning it off, and I'm waiting for my phone to either blow up positive or negative about whatever happened, because everybody else started texting me either way that either they won or lost. The bad thing about this is if they win this game, nobody's going to talk about them on Monday. It's just going to be a Rip McCarthy and the Cowboys fest all day. Yeah. Nobody will. They'll say, "Oh, Jordan Love and the Packers, that's really good," but boy, did they choke. Well, that's all it's going to be. But that's okay. That's fine. I'll deal with it. He is Eli Berkovits. Follow him on Twitter at @BookofEli_NFL. PackADay podcast, Packer Report. You do another show too. I don't think I put it up on the screen. What's the other show that you do?
The Pack with myself, Janelle Mackey, and Zach Jacobson. So you can find that on Twitter at @thepack_show.
Perfect. There you go. Eli Berkovits, Steve Sparky Fifer. We'll be back on Friday. I'll give my predictions then. We'll do Confident, Concerned, and Curious with Ryan Horvath of BetMGM tonight as well. And I've got all these fun numbers that I wanted to do on the last two podcasts I haven't got to, so maybe we'll get to them on Friday. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again to Eli Berkovits for joining us. Toodles.